Hey everyone, have you ever heard of the term gooned? Like you got gooned? Oh, where is so and so? Oh, they were gooned, didn't you hear? I just heard this phrase for the first time ever last month from a fellow survivor who was gooned. And basically, what that means is you were taken by two big men or maybe one woman in the middle of the night to a wilderness or treatment center, and these people who took you were hired by your parents. It's basically a legal kidnapping. While I was lucky enough to not be gooned, I was brought there by my parents in a startling way as well, though it would have been much more startling if they were strangers. So I'm going to tell you what that day was like and walk you through my experience of being taken and driven to the middle of nowhere in Alabama and being left with strangers and what my first day was like. So I was taken after school day on Monday, February 9th, 2009, and I went to school that day as usual. I walked myself home from school. It was my freshman year of high school. My second semester just began, and there was something off about the whole day. Just something was not quite right, and I could sense it. I couldn't get a hold of my parents, and then when I got home, my sister was walking around with a trash bag full of stuff. And I had this sense already, so I confronted her and looked in the bag, and it was a lot of my things. So I realized pretty soon after that I was likely about to quote unquote get gooned by my parents. I felt very helpless in that moment because I did not have a cell phone at the time. Of course, I had one, but it was taken away by my parents. My phone was often a point of contention, like many other teenagers, and I didn't know what to do. I called my closest friend Eli on the landline, and he began to alert my other friends, and they all gathered at my house shortly after. When my friend arrived, he did suggest that I run out the window, and I did, but I was caught pretty soon after by my dad, who was on his way to my mom's house to capture me. And I thought it would be funny to show you guys a picture of us kids on that day. Of course, that's me in the middle, as well as my besties who are seeing me off. So after I got to say my goodbyes, which was very lucky, my parents put me in a car, and I had to sit in between my mom and her god-awful boyfriend at the time, Charlie. He was very antagonistic. He would follow me around my house and try to tell me what to do despite not being my parent, not even knowing me for longer than 6 months. So once I did throw a salt shaker at him, and I've never regretted that. But back to the story. We drove overnight to the state of Alabama, and Wisconsin and Alabama are quite far from each other. It was more than 14 or 15 hours, and I slept in the back seat, and when we arrived, a very large woman with long black hair and heavy pancake makeup met us in the parking lot, and I was quickly escorted away from my parents towards one of the 5 dorms. Everything was very plain and sad looking. I'll insert a picture here. And I was strip searched, and I had to put on the dreaded fashion show. I've talked about this in shorts before. They make you try on every item that you brought in to make sure it's up to the standard. So my parents brought my stuff in trash bags, and the staff members and 2 students in the program, one who was my big sister and one who was a helper, spread out all my stuff and started searching through it and making piles of stuff to go back and stuff to try on. After I finished the dreaded fashion show, they took me back to say goodbye to my parents, which was very brief because obviously I was really angry at them. Of course, my mom was crying, and that made me more mad, to be honest, because it was my time to cry. I was in Alabama getting abandoned. So they left, and I was quickly put into the program and expected to assimilate. They started by giving me a rule book to read, which I've shared on here before. It was quite a lengthy read. And then my big sister sat with me as I read that, and she would have to answer all my questions. And she told me that I was on pink, and if I saw any other girls wearing a same pink bracelet as me, I was not allowed to look at them or speak to them. That day we had chores and PE was basketball, and I just literally got there, and all of a sudden I'm on a basketball court with a bunch of girls that I don't know, and they took it really seriously. And I learned later it's because we have no extracurricular activities, so sports were like the only time we got to kind of horse around. Then at 5 p.m. we had a mealtime, and I was served the biggest plate of food I'd ever seen in my life and was told I had to finish all of it. That night we went to sleep at 10 p.m. and when the alarm went back off at 6 a.m. I was in complete shock. I couldn't believe it was real, and that's where the nightmare began.